So in 2007, I got raided by the RIAA in conjunction with the feds, and came with M16s and told me I was being arrested under the RICO. I would set up on top of the trash can and I would have like all my mixtapes in there. And I remember lying a lot of times too. Like people were like, "Who's DJ Drama?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. I just work for him. Like he told me to be here." When niggas saw me, like first of all, they didn't even know if I was black or not. Then they like, "How is he saying?" Thankfully, my parents named me Tyree, so I don't have to have that argument. You know what I mean? But we talking about 25 years ago, so we all wound up becoming like close.
I ain't even 25 yet. You talk about 25-year relationship.
What's up, y'all? It's me, and we back with another Producer Grind, Producer Culture interview. And today we got the legend, DJ Drama, co-founder of Generation Now, known for founding Lil Uzi Vert, Jack Harlow, and Steady Hendrix. Famous Gangsta Grillz mixtape series featuring Lil Wayne, Fabulous, Ludacris, Young Jeezy, Gucci Mane, and more. Known for Dedication mixtapes. Also known for Tyler, the Creator, Call Me If You Get Lost project. Just won a Grammy for that. Also known for Pharrell in My Mind, and also working with Young Jeezy and TI. But the list could go on all day. So before we get into some questions, we're going to start with some icebreakers. So the first one is, name a song that describes your life.
Ooh, a song that describes my life. That's a hell of a question. I'm going to say Notorious BIG, Juicy.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper, Heavy D up in a limousine.
So what's the biggest lie you were told as a kid?
The biggest lie I was told? Mm-hmm. The biggest lie I was told as a kid is when you're in a car, you're not supposed to have the light on.
Oh, because it's against the law.
In the car, yeah, you're not supposed to keep the light on while you drive, because if so, the cops will stop you for having the light on or some shit my parents told me. I never, like, when I grew up, I was like, yo, that's like, what are y'all talking about?
That's cap. My mama told me that shit too.
My mom told me that too, but that's cap.
Yeah, like, does anybody know anybody that's ever gotten stopped for having a light on in the car while you drive? Like,
I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah. Maybe back, I don't know, maybe when lights first came out in cars. So maybe our parents' age group or something.
What's the dumbest shit you got pulled over for?
The dumbest shit I've ever gotten pulled over for? I mean, I got pulled over one time. I used to live up the street from here when I was still kind of building Mean Streets next door. I used to live Mid-City Lofts in Midtown, and I was coming through Georgia Tech campus, and a cop pulled me over. I think I had I think it was like my license had expired or something. But the way, like, I was driving I think I was in a Benz or something, so like there was really no reason for him to stop me, because it wasn't like my plates was expired, but my license was expired. So he obviously was behind my car, and he must have ran it and seen my license was expired, and he pulled me over. And then he wound up seeing I was DJ Drama. He was cool about it, but he didn't let me drive. He made somebody else come and drive the car to the studio. So I think like Lake had to come or something. But I found out an interesting tidbit when he did that. I found out that, if you're a worker at Georgia Tech in some form or fashion, your children can go to school there for free. So he told me that's why, like, he took the job. So I was like, damn, that's pretty fire.
I think that's what all colleges. I think that's a lot of, yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. That would make sense. Shit, I need to go get a job at Harvard or something.
So if a genie granted you 3 wishes, what would you wish for?
If a genie,
you can't wish for more wishes.
Oh, okay, that was going to be my first one. Eternal life. Who?
Damn, I ain't never thought about that one. We were talking about that the other day, and I did not think of that one.
Oh yeah, for sure. That'd be my off top. Eternal life. An unlimited supply of finances for my eternal life, and peace on earth. Yeah,
those are good ones.
Yeah, peace on earth.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into the questions. So what was it like?
That was some good icebreakers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I work hard on those.
I like that. The first question, that was a good one. The one song to describe my life. I'm gonna go home and think about that. I'm gonna think a couple more songs.
I feel like mine change every week, but
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I do. You know, when I think about Juicy and like how he was describing, you know, his come up, and you know, that's how I look at my career and think about it in that aspect.
yeah, that's a good song for you.
Yeah.
So growing up in Philly, what was that like, and how did you get into music and mixtapes?
First of all, I know this is y'all interview on me, but like, where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn.
You from Brooklyn? Where you from?
I'm from Virginia.
Virginia. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right. And you went to Clark?
Yeah.
And you?
Drop out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't even go to college?
Nah, like 2 weeks and then I was out of there.
What school?
It was like community college. in
Got you.
Virginia.
What part of VA?
Richmond.
Oh, okay. And what part of Brooklyn?
It's like East New York, Best Side.
East New York. Okay. All right, cool. All right, now what was the question again?
What was life like growing up in Philly, and how did you get into music and mixtapes?
Life growing up in Philly was it was love, you know. I mean, it's a city of brotherly love. Like, you know, I grew up living between my mother and my father. My parents split when I was like 2. You know, I used to go back and forth between my dad and my mom. Like every couple weeks, I would spend like a week with my mom and then a week with my dad. And I did that until I was like maybe like 10, 11. And, you know, my mom is Jewish. My dad is Black. And both my parents are very politically and socially conscious. So I grew up like, you know, around a lot of marches and civil rights movement gatherings. And my mom is an educator. And then, you know, I remember like even like, you know, during times when the teachers would go on strike and there would be like the strike, and, you know, she would have me down there kind of like, you know, not crossing the picket line or just on strike with her in that way. So yeah, I grew up like I had 2 parents. Like I was just telling somebody this other day, like when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch the A-Team because, you know, it was like about soldiers who were, you know, came from fighting in the Vietnam War. My dad was a conscientious objector, which is, you know, someone who, when they had the draft for the Vietnam War, he said no, so they sent him to jail. He did like 2 years because he turned down going to Vietnam. So I wasn't really allowed to watch Tom and Jerry because it was racist. I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of Disney movies and stuff because there was racist epitones in it. Couldn't watch Dukes of Hazzard because of the Confederate flag on the car. So I wasn't supposed to watch G.I. Joe because it was, you know, about the military. And I'm a kid. I'm like, the fuck? Like, I can't enjoy none of this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, who's not allowed to watch Tom and Jerry and fucking G.I. Joe? But I mean, later on in life, you know, I got it. So, and then I also grew up, you know, my parents were big music lovers. Both my parents, I always remember them having vast record collections. At times, my dad was super big into doo-wop and, you know, like R&B groups, Motown and things of that nature. And then, you know, like I'm of the age when I was a kid, hip hop was first really bubbling. So like, you know, for me, Run DMC was one of the first examples of you know, hip hop and a rap super group. I remember I wanted my parents to buy me Adidas because of the song My Adidas. And yeah, you know, I grew up like, you know, I was a kid. Like I remember my dad thinking hip hop was going to be a fad, you know, at that time. And then so around like, so before I became a DJ, I was super into skateboarding. Like I never really played a lot of sports. Like, you know, maybe here and there, some basketball or some football, after school activities, but never like in school or nothing. So I was super into skateboarding. And I actually grew up with Stevie Williams, who is a super legendary professional skateboarder. He started DGK, Dirty Ghetto Kids, which, you know, was under Reebok and things like that. So I came up around a time when it was a crew of like young black skateboarders. They used to go downtown Philly at this spot called Love Park, which used to be super legendary for skateboarders at the time. But I was trash. Like I was always the worst one. I was always the kid who could barely, you know, make a kick flip or something like that. I remember niggas used to crack jokes on me and shit like that. And then, so around like between 8th grade and 9th grade, I went to the movies to see Juice. And, you know, that pretty much changed my life. Like, you know, I went like, of course, like I was familiar with DJs before Juice. And, you know, Philly was always kind of known for having a DJ culture. But, you know, I just remember my fascination, like, of watching Omar Epps or his character GQ, like, be in his bedroom, making his demo tape and cutting and scratching. And I was just like, damn, like, that shit, you know, I want to try my hand at that. So I think I convinced my mom to buy me a turntable and a mixer, like just one turntable and a mixer. And then the first, like back in the day, there was belt drive turntables and there was direct drive. So anybody who knows about like Technic 1200s, you know, they're direct drive. But the first turntable I got, I think, was like a Gemini, and it was like a belt drive. So it's like when you jigga, like when you cut and, you know, it's supposed to like go straight, like jigga, and a belt drive kind of like jigga, and it takes a while to get started. So I went into my first year of high school, you know, kind of really just getting into DJing, and I would save my lunch money. I wouldn't spend my lunch money, and I would go downtown Philly after school to these stores called Armin's, Funko Mart, Sounds of Market, and I would, you know, that's how I started buying my records. That's how I started my record collection. And then, you know, I think I did my first party my freshman year of high school for this kid named Ari, and I think he paid me like $40, something like that. I had like one crate of records, and, you know, I don't remember if I must have had some form of equipment or something like that. It was like his 13th birthday or what have you. And then the summer between my freshman year and my sophomore year of high school, my sister took me to Harlem. She took me to New York, and we went to Harlem, and we was on 125th Street. And this was back when the vendors used to be outside and things of that nature. And I bought my first mixtape, which was DJ SNS Old School Part 2. And the reason why I bought that tape was because when I was buying records, a lot of the songs that were on, you know, this was before like covers and shit like that. So it was just like, you know, the vendors would have all the tapes, and then they would have this book of playlists, and they would have all the songs on it. And I remember like he had all these records that I didn't have. Like I didn't have those records. So I bought that tape, and I was just like blown away. Like I studied that tape inside and out. I knew everything about it. Like every song at DJ SNS's transitions, like the shit he would say on the tape. And I was just really, you know, mesmerized. And that really started my like fascination with mixtapes. And this is around the time when like Clue first really came on the scene. And, you know, I remember buying Clue tapes and feeling like, you know, when I would go to school, I was like ahead of the curve, you know, because it was like Clue had exclusives, and, you know, I felt like niggas y'all not hip to what I'm hip to, because, you know, I'm listening to these mixtapes and these songs aren't necessarily out yet, you know. And I remember like one of my first records I actually bought was Heavy D, Who's the Man, off the Who's the Man soundtrack, and the B side of that was Biggie Smalls, Party and Bullshit. And, you know, like, I just remember even having like being hip to Big, you know, before the world had gravitated towards him a couple years. And yeah, so, you know, when it came to DJing and like DJ culture, like, you know, I was definitely into like, you know, I used to watch like battle, like DJ battles on like VHS tapes and things like that. And, you know, like listen to the radio in Philly, but it was just always something about the mixtape DJ to me that always was like larger than life, that I always found myself like attracted to when it came to like, you know, because there's different routes of DJing on the DJ tree. There's party DJs, there's, you know, there's cutting and scratching DJs, technical DJs, there's radio DJs, you know, there's tour DJs, and, you know, there's mixtape DJs. And the mixtape DJ just always like was just like larger than life to me. So, you know, I always aspired to go in that direction. I know I'm being kind of long-winded here. And then,
no, you good.
And then, so around this time, I was listening to a lot of Clue. I was listening to a lot of Ron G. I was listening to a lot of doo-wop. And doo-wop made this tape called 95 Live. And 95 Live kind of changed the game because at the time, like, you know, Clue had the exclusive game, and he was, you know, he took the format from like what Ron G was doing with blends and, you know, people putting together tapes to like it being about new shit that nobody had. And then doo-wop came and he literally had these freestyles. Like he had like A-list artists like Busta Rhymes and like Q-Tip and, you know, people like giving him verses that were like exclusive. You know, it was like 95 Live was just like, it was a game changer, you know, because at that time people were just playing, you know, new music. And then here came 95 Live, where that was the only place you were going to get those verses was off that tape. So I pretty much like bit the whole formula, and I made a tape called Illadelph. And at the time I was like, you know, in the Philly scene, the Roots were just coming up, and there was some other group. I remember there was this group called 100X. And then my next door neighbor in West Philadelphia actually was this woman named Bahamadia, who is a you know, a Philly legend from the 90s. And I was getting freestyles from like Rest in Peace Malik B, from Black Thought, you know, from various groups, and I made my own version of what 95 Live was, and was called Illadelph. And, you know, that was kind of my first like quote unquote real mixtape.
So it's like, for the younger generation that watches our interviews now, like what was the vibe of a mixtape back then? So I feel like a lot of people around our age, my age and younger, would be like, well, a mixtape is just like a couple songs just put together like an album. But it was different back then. You had drops and all that.
I mean, you know, the mixtape is like, it's changed so much through the eras, you know, like before my time, like a mixtape used to literally be like a recording of a DJ at a party. Like if we want to go back like to like Brucey B and Lovebug Starsky, and people of that, like they were taking, you know, they were literally taking recordings of the parties that they were doing and putting them on cassettes and then selling them to like the hustlers and, you know, niggas like who was getting money. They would sell them for like $50 a wop or something. So then, you know, in the New York days, motherfuckers would ride through, maybe blasting a tape, and then, you know, you would hear a certain shout out of somebody that was at the venues or at the parties and stuff like that. And then, you know, then it kind of changed over, you know, Kid Capri came on the scene and SNS came on the scene, and then they were making, you know, they were actually like making mixtapes where they were flipping records and like cutting and scratching and talking over the tapes, and they became like literally like, that was the mixtape format. And then like Ron G came along, and Ron G started taking acapellas from from R&B songs and putting them over hip hop beats. And he was like, you know, that was revolutionary at the time. Like, he was literally the first to do that. Something that we all know today is common. If you hear a R&B song over a hip hop beat, like Ron G was literally the first person to do that with music. And then again, Clue came along and changed it, where it was all about exclusives and, you know, like who had the newest music. And then an era came where, you know, like Doo-Wop and Tony Touch came, and then people started getting like freestyles where, you know, people were like literally rhyming over somebody else's beat, you know, on a mixtape and things like that. And then the game kind of changed where DJs started to like get hosts, or like record labels were doing mixtapes. So like Puff was ahead of the curve, and he would do bad boy mixtapes, and then he would go and get like the hottest niggas out, whether it was Clue or MV or Who Kid, and do like, you know, bad boy like mixtapes, and he would host them and things like that. Then you had like Green Lantern would come along, and Green was literally like taking, you know, he was taking sound bites and bits and pieces of various records and making his own songs, and, you know, making these amazing intros to this day that'll still blow your mind. And yeah, the mixtape game, it was a lot of different things at the time. Then like Mr. C would come along and was making best ofs, and, you know, you would be on the street and it'd be like a best of Biggie or a best of Jay-Z, or, you know, Cosmic Kev was making best of Beanie Siegel. So then there was those versions. And then again, you know, hosting was a big thing like in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then everything changed with 50 Cent. And then 50 came along, and before 50, like niggas used to just spit 16s on somebody else's beat. And then 50 came along and literally like changed the whole format, because he then took a song that was popular and redid it and made his own version of the song. Nobody had did that before, Fifth. And so then it went from like, okay, niggas just like kind of spitting on other people's beats to like, this nigga's coming along and making a new song. And between 50 and Dipset, they literally like killed the demo tape. So like before back in the day, people used to always say, please listen to my demo, you know, listen to my demo. That was how niggas would get on in the rap game. Like they would want to get a demo to a label and get them checked out and then get them signed. And then when Fifth came along, it was like, now was, okay, you know, this is my mixtape, you know, and he literally kind of transitioned the mixtape from going from a compilation of other people's songs to like a street album, where it was like just all 50 Cent, like, you know, Who Kid and 50 was doing just their own, you know, mini street albums, and Dipset and rest in peace to K-Slay were doing something similar as well, where it was just like all their bodies of work. So then the mixtape changed formats from like being like a compilation of songs to them being just like one artist, and that being what a mixtape was. And then I came along with Gangsta Grillz and, you know, kind of implemented the same formula, but I was here in Atlanta, you know, and I was applying that formula to Southern artists and Southern music. So early on, Gangsta Grillz was just that. It was like a compilation of the hottest songs in the South. Mm. And then, you know, over time, as things were changing, I was, you know, like, okay, I was like, damn, I got to get a host. So my first host for Gangsta Grillz was Lil Jon, hence how the Gangsta Grillz drop was born, because that was Lil Jon's voice. And I just kind of like, you know, the next tape I had, I didn't have a host, so I just ran his voice over and over, and it became like a tag. And then when I met Tip early on in my, you know, after I had gotten out of college, and, you know, Tip and Grand Hustle and Jason Jeter, were bubbling and they were doing their thing, and they were even putting out their own mixtapes. And then Jeter came to me with the idea of doing like a Gangsta Grillz like special edition where it was just all Tip and Grand Hustle. And that was the first Gangsta Grillz that was just all one artist. And I was like super excited to do it because, I was paying attention to what like Who Kid and 50 and what Green and Eminem were doing at the time. And I was like, bet, like, somebody gets it, So me and Tip did the Gangsta Grillz where it was like Gangsta Grillz meets TI and PSC in the streets meets Gangsta Grillz, however it was titled. But that was the first of Gangsta Grillz just being like one artist, and it like took off like hotcakes, and the rest is kind of history. So yeah, like mixtapes have literally taken on different formulas or formats over the different eras and have changed with the times.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. I remember like in high school listening to mixtapes. All I heard was they got them think it's a game tag on like all the Lucha shit. They got, what I'm talking about?
Think it's a game, yup.
Yeah, yeah. Like I came in real late.
You
like,
a young
I missed
nigga.
the Wayne. Yeah, I missed the Wayne and everything.
Yeah, you're a super young nigga. Damn.
Yeah.
If that would think it's a game tag.
That shit was like real late. That's really when it started. Like
think it's a game because think it's a game was between Trinidad and Quan and Lucci. Like I guess like good 2013, 2014, 2015 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Talk about like what made you move.
Oh yeah, I was definitely about to ask that same.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you do it since y'all the Clark people.
Okay. So what made you move to Atlanta? Like, why did you choose to go to Clark, Atlanta?
I had taken a trip to Atlanta with my dad a few years before I decided to go to Clark, and like I fell in love with the city like early on. I think I was about like 16, and I just felt the energy. Like it was very vibrant, You could tell that it was just a city that had a lot of Black culture and like, a lot of people of color at a young age, just, making a lot of moves and things like that. And I always thought that I was gonna, my dream was to like move to New York and go to NYU and live in Brooklyn and like live in a brownstone. Like, I was a very East Coast driven kid coming up. But when I was applying for schools, Clark, Atlanta was one of them. I had a friend that went to Clark as well, like a family friend who also I went to my high school, and I came and I visited him, and I spent some time on campus, and then I also got an academic scholarship, so that definitely helped in my decision making. But I also just like, the type of person that I am, or like, I've always been a hustler, always been driven. So, I knew that Atlanta was a city that I could kind of like do my thing in, when I was, deciding where to go or what have you. And, ultimately like Atlanta over New York, I was still like, okay, like I can move around and figure it out. Like I never really was the type that, I knew early on, like my life's not going to take me in a 9-to-5 direction. You know what I'm saying? Somehow, some way, like I wasn't built for that type of life. And then, so I came to Atlanta, and, it changed my life.
So how did going to Clark, Atlanta change your life, and what values did Clark, Atlanta instill in you? I had to ask that.
Yeah, I mean, the motto of Clark, Atlanta is find a way to make one. And like, I did just that. But in so many ways, I mean, early on, just again, like, here you are in a school or in the AUC where it's like, it's young people of color from all across the country. So as a DJ, it taught me very, very early on to be well-rounded, like, I had to learn early on, like, okay, I can't just, I was playing fucking Cool Keith, Dr. Octagon, like, and I know that's way over you guys' head, but like,
Yeah, I ain't gonna count.
Yeah.
Hold on. When he said it, I was like, what the
But I'm just trying to put it in perspective. Like, there's some real like underground, and he's actually from New York, but just some shit that me and my friends in Philly was vibing to at the fucking house parties that we were doing, and couldn't come to CAU playing that shit. So, yeah. So I learned early on to be well rounded as a DJ. I met my man DJ Sense, like my first day of school. We stayed in the dorm together, and he was from Philly, and we started like we became friends, and we also were doing a lot of gigs together. I met Lake Show my freshman year as well. He went to Morehouse. He was in this rap group called Cult of Icon, which was like Morehouse's version of Wu-Tang Clan. And I met Don Cannon the next my next year. Yeah, my sophomore year was his freshman year. So, I literally met the people that I've been in business with and been friends with like through school. And my dad always told me that. He told me like, he wished he would have went to a HBCU, or that the friends that you make in college are the friends that, will last a lifetime. And he was definitely right about that. And even beyond my core friends, like the people that I went to school around, or, there's various people within all like walks of life that I met, whether at Clark or, just in the AUC in general, that to this day I'm still in contact with or still do business with, or, of some form of or fashion. And then, again, just the energy in Atlanta, like, Atlanta was literally becoming the mecca of hip hop, like as soon as I got here. And from, the party scene and the nightlife and, the music, and, I literally, like, sometimes I think it's destiny, when I think about the story of what was to come. And then, here I am, this kid from Philly that comes down here and, is a part of like changing, Southern rap music and hip hop, and like, the culture in Atlanta, and mixtapes, like, mixtape, like Atlanta had its own culture of mixtapes that, was definitely here before me, like Edward J tapes and DJ Smurf, who's now known as College Park, and then, Camp. But I will say this with all due respect, like the mixtapes scene in Atlanta was like known in Atlanta, so what we were able to do with the affiliates and with Gangsta Grillz is like we literally took the Atlanta sound and Gangsta Grillz and turned it into a national and a global thing, so like, back in the day when they had the Justo Mixtape Awards, like I think I'm the first and only non-New York DJ to ever win, Mixtape DJ of the Year. So yeah, so Atlanta, going to CAU, like I don't know, I think that some way or somehow I was gonna figure it out regardless of where I, would have ended up, or whether I would have went to New York or California or stayed in Philly. But, I'm very thankful that I came to Atlanta, and I'm very thankful that, Atlanta embraced me. And, but I also, it's like, the game, like if I would have never came here, or would have wound up, like I said on Seti's mixtape recently, like, there was a point I almost went back home because shit wasn't working out. And like, imagine if I would have did that, how many classics we wouldn't have today,
So everybody always tells the story of you with your yellow boombox.
Wow.
Trash can on the promenade. Like, tell us your version of the story. Like, what was that like for you? Like,
you heard that? You heard that story?
Of course I did. That's Clark, like, legend.
Is it?
Yes.
That's crazy.
I don't know what the hell y'all talking about. But go ahead.
I'm gonna show you the promenade one day.
Damn, I'm humbled by that. And what year did you graduate? Or what year?
2017.
And what year did you come to school?
2013.
Wow, that means a lot to me. It really does. That means a lot to me. That's crazy. That's like, yeah, that blows my mind. So when I was in school, like, not my freshman year, because I kind of was still trying to like find my way a little bit, but after my freshman year, I remember coming back to school. At the summer after my freshman year was the only time I ever went back home. And I went back home briefly, maybe for like 2 months during summer, before school started. And then I remember coming back to school and just like writing down this to-do list of like all the shit I wanted to accomplish and like just get on my shit. And I had kind of like my freshman year, I had kind of like stopped making mixtapes for a minute. And I was still DJing and doing parties and everything, but I had like, I don't remember why, but I just wasn't on my mixtape hustle. And I remember telling myself like, I got to get back on my mixtape grind. And, it was still cassettes at the time. And I had this little yellow Walkman, little yellow radio. And the reason why I had it is because it had like a handle on it. So I could like kind of hold it like this. And, back then on the CAU strip, there were green trash cans. Are the green trash cans still there? They might not be there.
They're not the same shade.
They're not the same. But we used to have these trash cans and everything. So I literally, like, in between classes, I would take my yellow. I used to be on campus, like long dreads, green fatigue pants. Everybody knew me. They used to call me Jamal from House Party back in the day. And I would set up on top of the trash can, and I had this like little like plastic holder, and I would have like all my mixtapes in there, and I would have like I made this tape called Hip Hop Lovables. I would have like an old school mixtape. I would have like, just a new shit mixtape, and this is even before I was making like South tape yet. And I would have like a reggae tape. So I would, just have various collections of my shit. And I remember lying a lot of times too. Like, people were like, "Who's DJ Drama?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. I just work for him. Like, he told me to be here."
That's good marketing
like,
early on.
Yeah, because I was like, niggas, if I'm trying to sell my shit, and they're like, "Oh, you get out of here." So, and I would do okay. Like, later on, I advanced and I started to get like a table and like real big speakers and was like making like hundreds of dollars. But like, I remember, being at the trash can with my little yellow radio and maybe making like good $40, $50, $60. And I think I would do like 1 for $5, 2 for $7, something like that. But yeah, that's what, what legends are made of. Like, literally started with a little yellow radio on top of a trash can on CAU campus.
That's crazy. No, I made a mistake though. I graduated in 21, but I came to Clark in 2017.
Okay.
But even still, like the fact that it's still being talked about,
it's like, crazy.
20 something years later. Like,
I'm just curious, like, how'd you hear that story? I gotta know.
So I was in what's the tour guides called? I was basically I was a tour guide. So when the new students would come and like you telling them like historic facts about Clark. So when I got trained, the girl who trained me, like she like DJ Drama used to sit on those trash cans over there with his yellow boombox. Like that's the girl that trained me. So when I'm giving my tours with the college students that came, I'm saying the same line, like
that is fire.
Passing it on.
That's fire. Yeah, I mean it's facts. So, and it's so crazy because like when we used to be in school, like, we used to like, the classes before us, like Shaka Zulu graduated before us. Brian Barber, who's a legendary director, used to do Outkast's videos. Kenya Barris was graduated before me as well, and then like DJ Mars and DJ Trauma.
I just lit at the school. Like.
They went to Clark, but they were all older than us, and they were all like doing their thing, like in the city and everything. And we used to be like, damn, like when is when it's gonna be our time. Like, like we used to be on campus just like, not even realizing that, we're in it, it's happening without us knowing it, and just thinking like, just watching the older classmen, get on and be like in the business and in the industry, and us being like, man, we can't wait till it's our time. And, look at us now.
Do you feel like it's an advantage being at a university? Because I remember the first interview that Sonny did with ProducerGrind, he was saying, man, it's just something about the music scene and college life. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, for me as a DJ, for sure, because, it kept me, I was working all the time. Like, every weekend, like it was, whether it was a fraternity or sorority event, or, DJing at Spelman on Market Fridays, or, it was always gigs somehow, some way. Like even before I was like known in the city, like I was known in the AUC, like I was that guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I've always had a competitive spirit. So, there were a lot of DJs around, and, for me and for Sense and for Cannon, like, we wanted to, when it came to the AUC, like nigga, DJ Drama's top of the food chain, or Drama, Sense, and Cannon, like, those are, before you go to anybody else, like you got to put them guys first. And, it was definitely other DJs around that was, we were competitive with, or, and it's all love, but I to this day, I remember there was a DJ named DJ Yogi. It was brand new. I think there was somebody named Big Willie, like, and they were all DJs coming up at the same time. And so, yeah, I think that, going to school, and being in music, definitely, there's some cohesion there, and, there's definitely some plays to be made. But, everybody has their own path. So it's not like, I don't think it's a necessity. I think in my favor, or in our favor, it was like, it worked out. And like, thank God, like, again, like the fact that me and Cannon and Lake and, we all met, like, the synergy there, that, years later has manifested itself in so many ways within the culture. But, thank God for HBCUs, or for schools for us.
But what's your story on how you met Cannon? Cause the nigga said yesterday y'all got two different stories. You know what I'm saying?
He said we have two different stories.
He said he came up to you and you was, his story won't really. He said he came up to you and you was like,
no, that's true.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think he told me we were talking about this the other day. He told me his version of the story, but I just remember him. So Cannon had already heard about me when he got to Clark, when he got to CAU. And I remember him kind of trying to befriend me. And I had this friend named Kyle, who they went to high school together. And Kyle put a bug in my ear, like Cannon was a nut or something. So, like, I kind of was like, I was kind of igging Cannon in a way, like, you know what I mean? Like, come on, young boy, like step back, Cannon steps back. But, and then I just remember, one day, I don't know how many months or how much time in between, but he was like, yo, check out my beat CD. And he gave me his beat CD, and I went home and I listened to that shit, and that shit was fucking flames. Like, it was fucking fire. And the next day, the me being the opportunist that I am, I was like, yo, Cannon, like, what's up, man? Your shit is hot. Like, yo, we should work.
I had that shit be, it's still like that to this day, bro. You'll see a nigga be like, I'm gonna listen to your shit. And then you finally listen to that shit and be like, yeah, come on. And then it just start like that. You feel?
And then that's literally, I think from then on, it was like, I think I went and told Sense, I was like, yo, boy, Beats is fire. Like, and at the time, Cannon was going by Donnie Brasco. that was his DJ name, DJ Donnie Brasco. So we didn't even call him Cannon yet. We used to call him Brasco. And then like, yeah, I just kind of, I told Sin, and me and Sense were like, you know, we were like this. And I was like, yo, Bull is nice. Like we should fuck with him. And then, yeah, we took like Cannon came on in, and we was like three amigos in a lot of way. And Cannon, you know, him being a year younger, like he had a certain demographic that was like fucking with him, and his like when he was doing certain parties and everything. And then, you know, I was on my mixtape grind, and then, you know, it made him get, you know, he started making mixtapes, and then, you know, I was setting up on campus, so I would sell his mixtapes, you know, along with mine, and then we just like, you know, we became inseparable. So is that different from his story?
So it's actually the same story. It's just like he never knew why you kind of like distanced, like told him.
He said you denied it. He said you would deny it.
He said you denied him, but we didn't know why. But now we know why. The friend Kyle.
He knows. I think he knows it was because of Kyle. But yeah, he might have forgot. But yeah, I've told him that before. Like, yeah, Kyle told me you was a nut. And I was like,
Are you still friends with Kyle?
Yeah,
now?
Cannon and Kyle, we're great. We're all great friends. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, Kyle's got, you know, shout out to my man Kyle, West Manchild. He's in Philly. Like, yeah, Cannon and Kyle are fucking tight. So, you know, we talking about 25 years ago. So we all wound up becoming like close.
I ain't even 25 yet. You need to talk about 25-year relationship.
It's crazy. But you know, it's crazy that, you know, but I don't feel old. Like,
you don't look old though.
I appreciate it, but like, you know, this shit right here, like this shit keeps, like I said, this shit keeps you forever 21. Thanks. Like the store. Like, thanks. You know, I'm 44 years old, and I feel frightened, you know, like
I be telling people, bro, look at Future, bro. Future about to be pushing 40. That's an old young nigga, bro. Like,
yeah, nah, it's facts.
Never knew that.
And you know, I don't like to hear you say you're not even 25 or you graduated in 2021. Like, you know, my daughter's in another room. Like, she's gonna be 22 next year. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they about the same age.
You're 21?
22.
I'm 22. Like, so he was born in 2000 or 2001?
2000.
Okay, yeah. She was born in 01. She was born like right after. No, she was born right before September 11th. Like, she was born August 13th. Like, September 11th happened, like, she wasn't even a month yet. But, you know, I just say that to say, like, yeah, like, you know, like, I remember being your age and thinking, like, how far 40 was, or, you know, when my parents turned 40, and now I'm 44, like, almost 45, and going close to 50. Like, shit's crazy how time flies, but, you know, it's dope for me to still feel and to be relevant, you know, even with like a nigga your age, you know what I'm saying? Like, or, you know, the demographic of a certain age, like that was always very key and very important for me. Like, even when I first got on, I was like, yo, it's one thing to get here, but like, how do you stay here? How do you stay relevant? And even like, you know, as a DJ, like, you know, there's DJs of my age or older that like play for their audience in a sense, which is totally cool and fine. But like, for me, like, you know, I want to, like, I've always wanted, and not to say that like I'm trying to, you know, dress like a young nigga or, you know, not be my age, but it's always been important to me to some degree to like have relevancy for like, you know, an age bracket of whether it's, you know, 18 to 21 or however, you know, and sometimes that wasn't even necessarily through me. Sometimes it came from, you know, Generation Now and, you know, the artists that we signed and, you know, them being the hottest shit for the kids in a sense. But I think the fact that I just always know that hip hop is based on the youth in a lot of ways. And like, you know, I mean, over time we've seen it be respected, like artists of a certain age can like still, you know, have a great career and things of that nature. But it's always been a young man's sport. So, you know, whether it's me working, you know, I mean, I've been blessed even recently to have this type of resurgence and, you know, work with NBA Youngboy or, you know, do the Dreamville tape or like the Tyler Project and like, you know, motherfuckers that's 15, 16 that weren't even born when fucking Gangsta Grillz, I created it, you know? And at the same time, still, you know, me and Jeezy are doing Snowfall and giving motherfuckers who was around in '05 that same feel. Like all that shit for me is like, you know, it's part of my ultimate goal of what I always wanted to accomplish.
So who was the first, was it TI, the first artist you met and started working with out here?
Tip was, yeah, in a sense, yep. Because when I got out of college, it's crazy because literally one of the first phone calls I ever got was from Jason Jeter. And he was like, yo, I got this new artist. You know, we just signed to Arista LaFace. You know, I want to bring him through to do a freestyle. And it was Tip, you know, and like, you know, I met him, he did a freestyle. Like, I'll never forget it. He came in my little humble abode in the 4th Ward and said he was the king of the South. I thought the nigga was crazy. But it's so crazy to me to think that like, you know, like to this day, you know, as many calls as I get or DMs or artists trying to get on. And like the first time that happened to me, it was fucking T.I., you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
like,
that's legendary for sure.
and you know, for me, it always keeps me very like, I tried to my greatest ability to always, you know, give as many people a shot as possible, or, you know, open ears. And, you know, there's been times even, you know, of some very legendary artists that have, you know, that I've missed out on or might tell you a story of how I may have like fronted on them. So I can't say that I've gotten it right every time, but the fact that Tip was and Jason Jeter was the first time that anybody like got my number off of a mixtape and wanted to come do a freestyle, and it turned out to be, you know, this nigga who's the fucking, you know, we all know he's going down in the history books, is like, yeah, it's legendary. It's crazy.
Sure.
So how did Jeezy come about?
So Coach K lived around the corner from me and Sense in the 4th Ward. We lived on Glen Iris and he lived around the corner. And we just got cool. Just, you know, he was in the music business. He was working with Alan Henderson, who used to play for the Hawks. He had a record label called Hindu. So Coach was working with Hindu, and then he branched out and was doing his own thing. He had this group called Jadis originally. One of the members, Bobby Creekwater, later on got signed to Eminem. And then he's told us, you know, this is an artist I'm working with named Young Jeezy, you know, and he had an album out called Come Shop With Me, and they had this van that they rapped, and it was the Come Shop With Me van. And Coach used to bring Jeezy through my crib to make, I used to make Jeezy show CDs for $100. And I would basically like, he would come and I would, you know, pick out a couple of beats that, you know, might be hot at the time, because he was doing shows in Macon, you know, during his Come Shop With Me days. And that's literally how we like first met, you know, it was through Coach. And, you know, Jeezy tells the story, like I did make him take his shoes off in the crib, and, you know, he was pulling up in something foreign, and, you know, he used to pay me $100. And then, you know, Gangsta Grillz was kind of buzzing in the streets. And then Coach and Jeezy told me, yo, I had did a party in Buckhead. I had did my first Gangsta Grillz party. Shout out to my man Biddy and Cloud9. I did it in conjunction with them. And then Coach and Jeezy was like, yo, we want to take you to lunch. So they took me to this spot called Harry and Sons. And, you know, Jeezy was like, look, I got this idea. I got this vision. Like, I don't know if you realize like the streets really fuck with Gangsta Grillz, like, you know, like niggas is fucking with your shit, like even Meech, like Meech be listening to your shit. And he was like, I got this whole concept, this whole vision that I want to do. And that was literally the first time anybody had paid me to do a Gangsta Grillz, and they gave me $1,000, and we did the first tape. It was originally called G's Up, but Scrappy had a group at the time called G's Up, so we changed the name of it to Streets is Watching, and you know, we put it out. The blue cover, it came out 2004 around the time of Birthday Bash. And within like a couple months, it was like, that's all you would hear about was like the new nigga, Young Jeezy, and off the Gangsta Grillz, the Streets is Watching. And, you know, that music was so potent and so strong. And the only place it lived was on Gangsta Grillz. So whenever the DJs or the clubs played it, they had to play Gangsta Grillz. So you was hearing me talking and my drops, and you was hearing it all over, you know what I mean? So it got even more familiar, you know, through that, because that was the only place you was gonna get that music.
All right, so two things. You made that nigga take off his shoes for real in the crib, bro?
I definitely did. I definitely made him.
What's some house etiquette rules in your career real quick?
I got a rug at my door in my house now that says, bitch don't wear no shoes in my house. Shout out to Roddy Rich. But I'm not tripping about, you know, I have hardwood floors now, so I don't mind. But yeah, I just grew up, you know, I think I did that from being a kid and, you know, growing up in a household where it was like, yo, you take your shoes off at the door, so.
I see why now though. I just got a house like a month ago, bro.
Yeah.
I had niggas over, bro, and it's all hardwood floors.
Yeah.
I came from my apartment with a carpet, so
Right.
I got done. I was sweeping the floor one day. What I told niggas last, I was like, hey, bro, y'all take y'all shoes off, nigga. That shit too much, bro. I ain't look out.
Yeah, and a lot of cleaning.
Yeah. So I seen in the Complex interview when I was doing the research, and you said Jeezy had paid you $1,000
Yes.
for the mixtape.
Yep.
If you go back in time, knowing what you knew now, would you still charge $1,000?
I mean, shit, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have charged him nothing. Like,
Okay, yeah.
because, you know, it was,
The relationship.
yeah, what came from that was priceless. You know what I mean? Like, $1,000 was, to me at the time, was, you know, still, it was a significant amount of money. But, you know, after that, every fucking street nigga wanted to turn rapper in the game or wanted to do a Gangsta Grillz, you know, especially after Trapper died. Like Trapper died, I didn't get, you know, they didn't pay me for it. And which, you know, in hindsight, like the type of money that I saw from that or because of that, like that shit changed my life. Like, you know, I've had a lot of moments that have been life-changing, but, you know, Trapper Die is definitely one for sure that was life-changing. I couldn't go nowhere in America and not hear my shit playing out of a car. I was on tour with TI at the time. Like, I didn't go, we was on a nationwide tour and I heard Gangsta Grillz out of every car in every hood. And that was my dream. You know, I grew up listening to DJ Clue or hearing Clue tapes out of everybody's cars. So, you know, to then go on and have my shit like play in all across America was like, man, I did it. Like, I'm really here. You know what I'm saying? And another thing is the Trapper Die DVD. When we did the DVD, I was the first time people ever saw what I looked like. So up until that point, everybody thought I was like dark skinned and like fat as shit, like just because of the way the tone of my voice and how baritone or how deep it was. So when niggas saw me, like, it was like, first of all, they didn't even know if I was black or not. Then they like, how is he saying nigga? And then thankfully my parents named me Tyree, so I don't have to have that argument. You know what I mean? But yeah, I wouldn't have. Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have charged them nothing. Like, I had no idea that you know, when you're in it, like you don't realize the history that you're making. Like, and I say on Snowfall, like if somebody would have told me, you know, that the music that we was making, you know, will be ringing off in front of 20,000, you know, years later, you know, I would have told them that you thought different, but in reality, I had no idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it still blows my mind to this day. Like, even me being on, you know, me on the road with Jeezy or on in front of those crowds and watching the reaction from that music and just remembering like where we came from and like, you know, really making history. Like, and you know, like I said, like me just being a student of hip hop and like it's, you know, that's part of the greatest gift in the world. Like knowing when it's all said and done, like, you know, they'll talk about me and my accomplishments and like what like I really put on for the culture. Like, you know, I made my stamp, I made my mark in so many ways. And so I wouldn't charge them nothing if I knew what I knew now.
Nah, that's fair. I ain't gonna lie, we post a lot on our IG about a lot of like just people in the music industry just clashing about the business side. So like, what was your mindset when you was growing your brand and stuff? Like, were you just like, man, I'm just trying to make the music, put the music out there? Or was it more like you was trying to get paid for every little thing? You feel what I'm saying?
Nah, I wasn't. I was like, it was about the music for me. Like I was trying to like, you know, when I was making mix, like I was gunning for the top. Like I remember, you know, early on tapes when I was still making intros and I was calling myself the king of this shit, or, you know, I way before I got to the point of making an album, I remember putting on one of the Gangsta Grillz like back covers, like Gangsta Grillz album on the way. Like, you know, I'm definitely a firm believer in manifestation. So a lot of things that has happened, you know, I manifested it, you know, very early on, and continue to do so. And so, you know, for me, it was like, you know, the money came and the money was dope and it was good. And, you know, it was also kind of like scary too, because I don't come from money, you know, I didn't grow up poor, but I had never seen that type of money that I started making in my life. And I didn't even know what to do with it. Like when I first got it, like I used to just like look at it in the bank. Like I had never seen that type of money. So for me, it was really more about like accomplishing shit within like hip hop. Like, you know, like I always wanted, every time I would do something that was like here, I'd be like, all right, what the fuck I'm gonna do next? You know, like when I did Trap or Die, I was like, damn, what the fuck, like how I'm gonna top this? And then I met Wayne and we did Dedication, you know, and then I was like, damn, how I'm gonna top this? And, you know, my career is literally like continued to go like that in so many ways, where it was just about like, you know, kind of checking off boxes of things that I wanted to, you know, to accomplish or to do. So, you know, I tell anybody like, you know, the money, the fame, the women, like the accolades, like all that shit is dope and, you know, it comes with it. But like at the end of the day, like, you know, if your heart and your mind and your goals are in the right place, like I feel like everybody gets that real shot. You know, you get that opportunity. Like it's like the Eminem song, you know, when the opportunity comes, it's once in a lifetime. Like you better be ready. You know what I'm saying? So I was ready. Like, you know, I had, you know, I started DJing in 92. Like, so by the time 03, 04, 05 came, like, nigga, I've been preparing for this for this long. Like and again, like I said, like I was like, all right, I got here. Like it's like getting drafted to the league. And it's like, you know, like you work your whole life to make it to the NBA, and then you get to the NBA and you're a rookie and you got to prove yourself, and, you know, year after year. So that's how I always attack the game. Like, you know, like, all right, I got here. Like, how do I stay here? Like, how do I make sure 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, like, I'm still here, you know? So, and I've done it, you know, and it's like, it's something that I can speak confidently about, but it's also something that, like, I'm very humbled by, and, you know, have humility, because I'm a fucking DJ. Like, every DJ doesn't get to do what I've done or get to see the things that I've seen. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of DJs out here, you know, and like, when it's all said and done, like, my name is gonna be talked about with the greatest of all time, you know. And like, just to think about growing up in Philly and being this kid that, you know, aspired to be, and to think that I really did it. You know, I got a lot of friends that I came up with from Philly that, like, know me from freestyling in my mom's basement, and, you know, us making little tapes, and, you know, and I still see them when I go home, and, you know, I still talk to them to this day, but like, I'm the nigga that made it. Like, I'm the one, you know. And it's like, it's similar to sports in a lot of ways. Like, everybody doesn't get that opportunity, you know what I mean? Like, we, more than ever, everyone has aspirations of making it in the music business, or like aspiring to be, you know, one of the top MCs or one of the top DJs. And like, you know, and then even beyond that, like, I've been able to be a part of other people's successes, you know, whether it was my friends, like, you know, even with Lake, like, you know, Lake had been grinding for years in the music business. And like, you know, when me and him really started to work together, like, I really, you know, I gave him the opportunity to become the boss that he deserved to be, you know, and he paid a lot of dues, you know what I'm saying? Or like, the successes of Cannon, or even beyond that, like, building Mean Streets. And like, you know, I used to be an intern at Dallas Austin's studio, fucking doing food runs and changing the trash cans and doing whatever. And, you know, to go from that to opening up what is now one of the most legendary studios in Atlanta, and to create those type of opportunities for people. And then to even be a part of, like, you know, young artists' rise, and watching this little kid from Philly who told me he was going to be a rock star, to him really doing it. Or this young kid from Louisville, this white boy who said he wanted to be one of the greats, to now being like one of the hottest motherfuckers out here, hosting Saturday Night Live. Or, you know, Seti sneaking into the studio and, you know, telling his homeboys back in the day, like, one day I'm gonna be signed to DJ Drama, to where I am now. So not only have I been able to, like, live my dream and have the successes that I've had, but I've been able to create opportunities for other people to live their dreams and to make millions of dollars. And that's like, you know, that's a great feeling.
I ain't gonna lie, man. That shit just motivated me. You know what I'm saying?
Real,
Got me ready to make a beat real quick. So how did the situation with you and Lil Wayne come about?
I was on a tour bus with Tip. I was in my bunk, and, you know, you ever been on a tour bus?
I wish.
Okay, so basically the way the tour bus is like, you got your front area, and then in the middle part, you got bunks. So there's like 3 bunks on the side, or normally there's like 6 bunks. So there's 12 bunks. And then there's a back room, which is normally for the artist, and like the entourage, or, you know, the staff are in the bunks. So I was Tip's DJ, and so I was in my bunk, and Tip was on the phone with Wayne, and somehow I knew, I heard, I don't know how I knew, but I was like, yo, you talking to Wayne? And he was like, yeah. I was like, yo, let me holler at him. So he handed me the phone, and I was like, yo, what's up? What's up? And me and Wayne started talking, and I was like, yo, you know, we got to do one. Like, we got to do a Gangsta Grillz. And he was like, nah, I'm with it. Like, let's figure it out. And I guess Tip gave me his number. And then when we got off the road, I went and met with Wayne and Cortez, who was his manager at the time. I went and met them at Stankonia, and I bought him a bunch of like beat CDs and stuff. And, you know, that was our first time meeting. And, you know, I just randomly came up with the name or the title Dedication. And this is even before, like, you know, Wayne was kind of coming into his own, but, you know, like I almost feel like it's like destiny that I named it Dedication, you know, for what that word means to Lil Wayne and his drive and like who he's become, or even like when we did Dedication 2 for what that meant for Katrina. And you know, how the series, you know, there's 7 dedications, you know, we went all the way up to 6 and then a 6.5. And you know, like this was, you know, Wayne was transitioning from like, you know, his Hot Boys days to then he started to do his Squad Up mixtapes. And then, you know, he had did the first Carter album. So yeah, when we did the first dedication, like, again, I didn't know what to expect. And, you know, I didn't know that it would go down in history as like what it's become. And even like, just like, it's just like the stars aligned in so many ways, like with the artwork, you know, of dedication. And then, you know, Wayne being the GOAT that he is, and me really finding my formula and my voice specifically on Dedication 2. Like, I just think that, like, for me, that was like the ultimate of like, you know, where Gangsta Grillz, like when I really, like, you know, that was it. Like what I brought to the game outside of just Gangsta Grillz was, I think that, like, you know, but what I add to the projects, like, you know, before me, DJs would just do like kind of like shout outs and, you know, talk about stores or various people. Like, I started like really talking shit on the tapes, like, you know, giving little sermons or just like adding to the music, or, you know, like I do everything but rhyme when it comes down to it, like, you know, when it comes to mixtapes. So yeah, you know, that was how me and Wayne first met. And, you know, we did the first dedication, and that shit took off like hotcakes. And then I remember we wound up going on tour together, like Tip, Jeezy, and Wayne, in 06. And I ran into him, and I, you know, was like, yo, you want to go again? And he was like, yeah, I'm ready. So we did Dedication 2, and then, you know, and as time went on, I think, and then Dedication 3 came after I had gotten raided. And like I say on that tape, like, yo, this is the first mixtape you'll remember when we had a black president. And that was like his real first introduction to Young Money as we know it today. Like, you know, Tyga was on that tape, Drake was on that tape, Nicki was on that tape, like, you know, and this was very early on in all of their careers.
Yeah, that's iconic. So you talked about New York City and like Canal Street being very important to like the mixtape game back in the day. So what are like some outlets of, well, first I want you to like elaborate on that a little more, because I mean, I'm from New York, so I know how Canal Street is, but like for the people that's not from New York, they don't really know much about Canal Street. So can you elaborate on that and then tell like how you promote your tapes now versus how you were promoting it back then?
Yeah, I mean, Canal Street was like, it was our internet. Like it was our social media. Like Canal Street was where all the major like outlets for mixtapes were. Like it was like mixtape central. Like Canal Street was, you know, if you were a mixtape DJ, like you wanted to be known or to be hot on Canal Street. And like, I think Canal Street also was like was a place that others would come to buy in bulk to take elsewhere. So, you know, if you was hot on Canal Street, like that means your shit was traveling to Connecticut and to DC and Virginia and Philly, and you know, it was spreading around. Like Canal Street was the ultimate hotbed for mixtapes, you know. And I used to go up there, and they didn't know me from nowhere, like. And I used to come down there with fucking Gangsta Grillz with South CDs, and they'd be like, nobody's listening to like South mixtapes. And I'd be like, yo, here you go, just take a box. Like, I just used to leave it, you know, on consignment or give them to them for free. And, you know, as like I started getting calls like, yo, them tapes, like we need some more. And, you know, even for like dedication, like, you know, Wayne was, that tape dedication was very influential for Wayne's career because of what Gangsta Grillz and what that tape was up north. Like it, you know, I was really moving a lot of units in, you know, the tri-state, specifically in Canal Street. So like, you know, niggas was tapping into Wayne that wasn't at the time like real like Wayne fans yet. So they were listening to dedication and like, yo, this nigga, like, you know, like he's spitting like East Coast nigga almost in a sense, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, Canal Street was like the holy grail for me. Like, you know, I used to, you know, move around Atlanta and go to the flea markets, or, you know, have like a store list of where I used to call whatever stores. Somebody, this DJ named D Mello, salute to him. He gave me his store list, and I used to, you know, just sit at home and call all those stores and send them boxes of CDs. Like that's how I would spend my days. I was like a one-man machine, you know, I was doing everything. And then when I got the opportunities to actually take trips, I would come to New York and I would just bring boxes and boxes of Gangsta Grillz with me and just try to move as much as I can on Canal Street. Cause, you know, again, like if you was hot on Canal Street, like you was it. And I wasn't hot on Canal Street yet. You know, I had to really break through. Like, you know, again, this is at a time when like New York City is still the, you know, the mecca of mixtape DJs, and, you know, out of towners were like, you know, you had to pay your dues or like, you know, make a name for yourself. And, you know, I was able to accomplish that.
I ain't gonna lie, that joint kind of fire. Like,
Nah, for real.
especially now, this shit totally different. What you say, like the outlets are now?
Oh yeah. So that was the other question. Like, how do I market or promote my mixtapes now? Like, you know, it's a new game, it's a new day. So, you know, I literally make a mixtape and it goes on the DSPs, and, you know, we promote it like an album. So, you know, like this right here, you know, everybody can have a catalog of Gangsta Grillz on here, you know. And even before these, you know, I used to call myself the iPod king when iPods were popular, because, you know, I used to, like, niggas had an iPod full of Gangsta Grillz. And, you know, it's interesting. You know, I'm glad I came from the days of like the actual physical product of a CD, and like being able to open it up and like look at it, or, you know, play it or what have you. But, you know, it's you know, it's a new day, and this shit right here, like you could turn it on and go listen to Snowfall, or go listen to Simba, or go listen to Tyler, or go listen to NBA Youngboy, or, you know. And my goal is to really put as many of the classic Gangsta Grillz from the old era onto the DSPs as possible. And that's something I've been working on, and definitely something in 2023. Like, I have some projects coming that I'm looking forward to on the nostalgic side of things. But I've adapted with the times. You know what I mean? And like I promote my shit just like everybody else promotes an album when they drop, or like I've been through every era. You know what I mean? So, and then like when it comes to mixtapes, like and this is not me saying this, so this is something that Flex said to me. He was like, like everyone's doing, like being the mixtape king has always been like a thing within mixtape culture, and there's been various times when various people have been the mixtape king. And Flex told it to me where he said, you still got the crown, because ever since you came out or came on the scene, nobody has taken the crown from you, and like you can argue that, as a mixtape DJ, I've had the longest run. Like if we talking about, Trap or Die and Dedication, that was 2005. Like we're in 2022 and Gangsta Grillz is fucking still hot. Like that's a 17 year run. Like no other DJ can say that. No other mixtape DJ can say that.
That nigga the Drake of DJ, you talking about? That nigga they got down Kanye West, they got that nigga they got down Tupac a DJ, that nigga got down.
It'd be dope though for like the next mixtape if you do like a Gangsta Grillz with compilation of like the rap girls, like female rap.
Stay tuned.
That would be hard. Take it all the way back to like Nicki and Trina.
Stay tuned.
Okay, for sure.
I think he already got that. He already got it.
That's in the works.
But I seen what's like 150 Gangsta Grillz, 150.
We probably passed that. We probably had like
3.
Nah, we ain't at like 2, but we definitely probably had like 200.
Okay.
Because like there's a list of like, we probably passed 200. Because I think there's a list on the internet. Somebody put them in order of like their rankings, and I think it was like from like 181 to number 1. But that list is from like 2016 maybe.
Bro, you got a lot. It was hard to find your first one, bro. I typed in on Google, I said your first Gangsta Grillz tape, and then all I seen was your top ranked Gangsta Grillz.
Yeah, that shit is hard to find. But I just, what's interestingly enough is like, even on my story, I just posted, so this is the first hosted ever Gangsta Grillz.
Mm-hmm.
Lil Jon hosted it right there.
I have that CD. Well, not me, but my mom got it.
Your mom has that?
Yeah.
How does your mom have that? She went to Clark?
I don't know.
How's your mom?
In the house. She's like,
you've seen this CD in your house?
Yeah,
That's
she's like 40
crazy.
something.
Okay, so yeah, she might have that. So this is probably one of the oldest ones you'll find out there. So really, before this, there were only 2, because I accidentally told Lil Jon to say 4, but I never did a 3. So I did the first Gangsta Grillz. I spelled it with an S, Gangsta Grillz, and that was just like the first. I just came up with the name and did it, and then I did part 2, and then I wound up doing part 4 with Lil Jon. That was the first time I had a host, and then the shit took off.
I was gonna ask you, where did that name come from?
Which name?
Gangsta Grillz.
I just came up with it like. I had to think of a new name. So I had a South series called, my first South mixtape was called, I think it was called How the South Was Won. And then I did one called, what was it called? I did How the South Was Won. And then I did one called, me and Sense did one together. I think it was called The Young Guns. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. So the first South mixtape I ever made was called Jim Crow Laws. It was called Jim Crow Laws. And then I did one called How the South Was Won. And then I needed a name for the new, like a new South CD. And I was just at the crib and I was just playing with words. And I was like, Gangsta Grillz. And Sense was like, yeah, that sounds dope. And I was like, all right, bet. And I called it Gangsta Grillz.
That's hard.
Shit's
It's a random question, but since you do all the drops and stuff, what you think about these beat tags these days, man? You playing them hot ass record, and then you hear Lil Tim on the beat.
I love it, you know. I mean,
Even the corny ones though, like the,
I don't want to call nobody. I don't know who you think is corny. So
I'm saying like you trying to tell me it's not a song you heard or some beat tags you heard? It's like, come on, bro.
as far as the drops,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, to each his own. Like, I think everybody deserves to, you know, have a tag, or, you know, I think it's dope that producers have, like, you know, they're half of the song in a lot of ways. So, you know, they deserve to get their credit or be known. So, you know, and y'all was just with Timberland earlier today. Like, you know, Tim made his self known through his beats, whether it was like through his you know, sound effects, or, you know, his melodies, or his vocals, or, you know, Swizz made himself known, and then, you know, like tags came along. So yeah, I think it's dope. You know, I would be a fucking hypocrite to ever talk down on somebody with the tags. Like, I make sure you know my shit. It's fucking Gangsta Grillz. You're gonna know this is the fucking Gangsta Grillz. Like, you know, but it's branding. You know what I mean? Like, it was always, and for me, it was like I wanted to make sure that I branded Gangsta Grillz before I knew that I was trying to build a brand. So I branded Gangsta Grillz before I was focused on people knowing DJ Drama. Like, you know, like when people went to the stores, I was like, I want them to be like, oh, that's the new Gangsta Grillz. Like, let me get that, you know, before, like, without them even having to look at what was on it or shit like that. Like, I was very key on branding. And, like, you know, once I realized, okay, I got something with this Gangsta Grillz shit. Like, all right, let me like get it to a point where it was like, whenever the new Gangsta Grillz came out, somebody went to the stores, they had to cop it.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2006, you and DJ Sense did a joint venture with Asylum. What was that venture about?
So I had already gotten my album, I had gotten my record deal with Atlantic Grand Hustle, for DJ Drama as an artist. So I signed as an artist to Atlantic to do my Gangsta Grillz album. And then we started the Affiliates Music Group through Asylum. Joey Manda was the president at the time, along with Todd Moskowitz. And, you know, they did a deal with Swisher House, a couple other people as well. And, you know, they just saw how we were moving out here, and, you know, they offered us a, you know, like a label deal for the Affiliates Music Group. And, you know, we kind of bumped our heads going at it. Our first artist was Willie the Kid that we put out. And, you know, but it was like, it was a learning lesson, you know, for what was to come for us, you know, later on. And salute to Willie the Kid. I definitely think, you know, he's always been a very talented artist. And even to an extent, I feel like we were ahead of the curve. Like, you know, when we first did that deal, a lot of people were telling us, like, you know, I was known for like Gangsta Grillz and, like, you know, street trap artists, or working with Jeezy or Tip, or, you know, Yo Gotti. Or so when we signed Will, you know, he was like more of a lyricist of, like, you know, what was to come with like a Lupe or a Drake or a J. Cole or a Kendrick. So, you know, in a lot of ways, we were kind of ahead of our time with what we were, you know, trying to accomplish when we did that deal. And, you know, we had Will as our first artist.
All right, so fast forward, you get your record deal, you making 6 figures, and all of a sudden, they got now take the money, bro. But you a good one, me, nigga. Especially when we got now, they do that shit. PP loan me, nigga. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, nah, let me stop playing. But goddamn, talk about like that situation for people who don't know before I ask the next question.
Yeah. So in 2007, I got raided by the RIAA in conjunction with the feds, and, you know, they came to my studio, one January 17th, and came with fucking M16s and guns drawn, and put me on the ground and told me I was being arrested under the RICO.
Them niggas doing the most. That like it was a violent crime.
Nah, for sure. They came at us like I was motherfucking Al Capone. You know what I mean? Like, nigga, I ain't never had a gun pointed at me. Like,
so you was calm about it though.
I was very calm. Like, I was very calm under the circumstances because I had thought it was a mistake. Like, I was like, oh, this is a mix up. You know what I mean? They're not coming for me. And then when they took my ID and they like was like, oh yeah, like Tyree Simmons, you're being arrested for bootlegging and racketeering. I was just like, what the fuck? And they locked me and Cannon up. We went down a Wright Street. I remember sitting in the holding cell and somebody would be like, yo, you on TV? And like we was on the news, like local DJs, DJ Drama and Don Cannon arrested, for bootlegging and racketeering. And they showed our studio and, them confiscating the CDs. And, they said on the news, like normally in these situations, we find guns and drugs. In this case, we didn't. Like they didn't find like not one handgun, not one spliff, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? Just CDs. Like I always think about like how different the story may have been if they would have came on like a Friday night. You know what I mean? Like, and it would have, whether it was some weed or guns or whatever, that would have been part of the story. But they didn't find nothing but mixtapes, and they ransacked our studio, and we had interns from CAU and the AUC, and it was like, the motherfuckers was like, they thought they was coming to work for some DJs, like, and then, we got out the next day and the game changed. Like, I was top of the food chain when it came to mixtapes. So like everything changed from that point. It was like, yo, if they knock Drama, like nobody's safe. So, you watch the mixtape game, like literally, go into a frenzy, and like businesses stopped, like mixtape websites folded, like mixtape DJs started different hustles. Like Vlad went on to go do Vlad TV. K Slay went on to, start Straight Stuntin' magazine. Like, everybody just kind of scattered because it was like no one's safe, and the mixtape game, took a hit. It still survived, obviously, and like, I think like in a way a phoenix arose from it, because even after that, the mixtape business became like bigger and more profitable than ever, because of sites like Lob Mixtapes and Dat Piff and My Mixtapes. Like, I made more money after the raid off mixtapes than I made before, but I also wasn't aware of like the RICO law. So, when I went to go check my bank account the day after I got out, I should say 0.00. And I literally cried. Like, I had 6 figures in the bank. Like I had a lot of money sitting in that bank account, and they took all that shit from me. But then I also got a call from Atlantic Records, and they were like, yo, how fast can you get us the album? We can't pay for this type of publicity. And it literally, it made me more famous than I was already. And, the type of attention that I got after that was different from before. Like I was known within like the mixtape community and within a certain, fraction of hip hop. But like after the raid, I remember being on Collins during Super Bowl, and like, it was just a different type of attention, and motherfuckers wanting to take pictures with me. It was different. And it gave me a story for my first album. And, and like I used to, when I first started doing interviews, not when I first started, but when I was doing interviews then, I used to tell people like, this is just one chapter in my story. Like, this is not the end all be all. Like, just watch, you know what I mean? And literally fucking 15 years later, like it's, you know, it is just that. Like it's just one one chapter in the story.
I say my generation probably don't even know that. I ain't know that shit. I did it Don Cannon. I was like, what the fuck, Rico?
Real shit. And I've said that on the tape. Like I think I said that on Kevin Gates, Luca Brasi too. Like, you know, I've accomplished so much since the raid or something like that. Like you niggas don't even, like, y'all don't even remember that. Like, you know, it's fan bases out here that have no idea of that, you know, and it's kind of wild.
I know y'all didn't get the money back. Did y'all get the mixtapes and CDs back?
Nah, they kept all that shit.
I didn't get the money back?
That's fucked up.
Nah, they didn't give me that money back.
They tripping.
Nah,
why keep the mixtape and CDs though? That's crazy.
I don't know why they kept it.
But when we went to go, right now.
When we went to go get some things back. They gave us like some of our equipment and shit back, and the cops were like taking pictures with us and had us signing shit for their kids, and
that's insane.
It was a whole nother, you know, they turned into fans.
Hell no, I would have been like, yeah, get out my face, nigga.
Nobody talks to me.
They just locked me up, man.
Yeah, they kept the money. They said the law they got me on was this law called the True Name Law, where if you make a recording, you have to have an address on the back of the CD. And, you know, at the time, mixtapes had like black back covers, so there was no address on there. So yeah, they kept that money, and you know, they didn't give me like a fine, but they were like, yeah, we're gonna keep your funds.
Damn.
But I made it all back tenfold.
Facts.
Hallelujah.
Definitely.
I know in one of your interviews you was talking about back then you ain't really know about like stocks and investments and that type of stuff. So like for people who get their first big bag, what advice would you give them to do with that type of money?
Definitely get a financial advisor, get an accountant. You know, when you get a bag, like put a good percentage of it to the side for your taxes off top.
Definitely.
Because they coming. And, you know, make your money work for itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, when I first got money, I just sat there and looked at it in the bank, and shit wasn't doing nothing for me, you know? So, you know, in my wise old age, or, you know, as I've learned through the years, like, you know, I've learned about investments and, you know, property and stocks and bonds, and, you know, so many various ways that you can make your money work for itself. So, you know, you're literally making money while you sleep, because money just sitting there is not doing nothing for you.
So what's some like investments and projects you dove into like after the raid?
After, you mean like recently or after the raid?
After the raid.
After the raid, I was still young and wet behind the ears, so I went back to making mixtapes and putting albums out. But, you know, since then, you know, I've gotten into real estate. You know, I do like a lot of voice imaging for radio stations across the country. You know, I've voiced like the Hip Hop Awards, the voice of God for that. I have different investments. I'm an investor in Liquid Death, which is a water company. I'm a partner in film production with my brother who I went to high school with, Jawan Lee, and Kuda Love. And yeah, and then I also, you know, have money within various like stocks and companies that along with my financial advisor, you know, they assist me on that.
So what made you start like going to other things, like you building Mean Street and then A&R in Atlantic?
It was just a natural progression. You know, like me building Mean Streets was in a way to kind of give back to, you know, to the city, to the culture. You know, I originally went into it to try to build a radio room to partner with Sirius XM And when I went into the building, that was the first room I built in there, was the radio room. And then that situation didn't work out, but I kept building. And, you know, I built a studio, and, you know, I had left Atlantic and I went to E1. And when I went to E1, I actually started having more success with my records and really started making like some hit records. You know, it's when I put out Oh My, it's when I put out My Moment, I put out Wishing. And then, you know, I was still working with people within the Atlantic system. And my man Sam Crespo came to me like, yo, I should, you know, you putting out some good records. Like, you know, I should present the opportunity for you to be coming to be an A&R to, you know, Craig, Julie, and Kaiser, who, you know, pretty much run Atlantic. And I went and met with them, and, you know, they were already familiar with me because I was signed to them as an artist. And, you know, they were like, yeah, they were like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And then I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I got the studio in Atlanta that, you know, you guys may want to partner with me in. And at the time, KP, Kawan Prather, was vice president over at Atlantic, and they sent him over to check it out. And he was like, yeah, it's dope. So when I did my deal at Atlantic, also was put in my deal that they would become partners with me at Mean Streets. And, you know, I was able to use their money to build the rest of the studio out. And, you know, over time it became, the go-to spot in Atlanta to record at or where shit was happening. Like, you know, any given Sunday you would catch Young Thug or Lil Uzi or Playboy Cardi or Gunna or Cardi B or, you know, you name it. I mean, we have a wall of fame of who's been throughout that building, you know, and it's pretty legendary.
I hate missing errors, bro. I just moved here in May of 2021. It's the first studio I started going to and like doing sessions at. When I first came here, and I'm just like, damn. Yeah. I heard someone talking about just like the history of it, like Metro, Cardi, and I was like, fuck, I missed it, bro.
Legendary, bro. Legendary. Metro was actually, you know, I was in there one day and I was just like, damn, like I got this pretty ass studio and nobody's working out of it. And I called Metro. I was like, yo, bro, look, I just built this studio. Like, I'm gonna just offer you free time, like come work whenever you want. Metro came into the B room, and, you know, next thing you know, 2 days later, Thug came to work with Metro. That's how I met Thug, and Thug, you know, loved Mean Streets. He started working out of there around the same time. I had did Crenshaw with Nipsey. Nip, rest in peace, came to Atlanta, and Nip was working out of there. And, you know, we had our radio show, so everybody was coming through to do radio. So, anybody has been through there. Kendrick, Drake, Missy Elliott, Pharrell, Wayne, Chainz, like 50, like Post Malone, Juice WRLD, rest in peace. Like you name it. Like, you know, they've been through Mean Streets, you know, and that building was literally built off my back. And we went and did our joint venture for Generation Now, and we built this building off Uzi's back, and we opened this building up in November, December 2019, and Jack Harlow came in this room right over here, made 3 records off top, one of them being What's Poppin'. Here we are.
We sitting in history.
Definitely in the midst of history, for sure.
Let's talk about the A&R drama real quick. Like, we know the story behind Generation Now, but like, I want to hear your side of like what you look for in the artist.
It's the twinkle in the eye, really. You know, it's the hunger and the, you know, the confidence of wanting to be one of the greats. You know, I also have a great team around me that I trust. And, you know, when they bring me something, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, when Cannon first told me about Uzi, I never heard a song. He just was like, yo, I heard this kid, Lil Uzi. I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, I don't want to miss any more. Or, you know, when someone first brought me Jack, like he had 7,000 followers. I started following him. You know, he came to Mean Streets. We started talking about movies, and you know, we vibed off our love for film, and you know, so it's various things. You know what I mean? You know, I trust my ear, but at the same time, I also know enough to know that like I don't trust my ear, if that makes sense. Like when I first heard Migos, you know, my man Certified Pat brought him to me, and they had just had Bando out, and he played me Bando, and I was like, yo, I don't get it, but if you say like this what the kids fuck with, like, hey, I'm in. You know, I met Migos, like I met Takeoff and Quavo. They were like 17, 18, you know, and recipes to take. But, you know, I was the first person to take them to New York City. You know, the first time they ever went to New York was with me, or, you know, I was the first to bring them out a birthday bash. And, you know, when it comes to artists, like it's just, it's not one thing in particular, but I just, you know, when I get that feel, like I know when somebody is like destined in a way, you know, and I'm a firm believer, like Lil Uzi and Jack Harlow, like they were gonna be here some way, somehow, just like I was gonna be here some way, somehow. But, you know, the way the cards aligned or the way the universe happens, like, you know, it's part of the story that they were able to stand on our shoulders to, you know, create the careers that they've created, you know. And, you know, like the way we are a generation now, we're small, tight-knit, boutique, you know, very family orientated in a sense. Like we don't sign 15 acts a year. Like we keep it very, very, very small in a lot of ways. And, you know, I've been A&Ring like even before I was an A&R, like making Gangsta Grillz or, you know, making mixtapes. Like
that's a version of A&R.
Yeah, I've been doing that shit my whole career. I just didn't really necessarily get the credit for it early on. So, but when people look back, like you think about a lot of artists, like first time you heard them was on the Gangsta Grillz.
Putting together records. So who's an artist that you would say that you missed out on, but like somehow you later on connected with them?
I mean, I think everybody has a story about kind of missing out on Drake. So definitely Drake. You know, again, I wanted to be in business with Migos, but it was still early on. So I wasn't, you know, we didn't have Generation Now yet. And I didn't have it all the way figured out. And I think that, you know, I think that for them and QC, again, the stars aligned in the right way, and you know, it was meant to be that way. Tory is somebody I've known for a long time, and you know, we were in conversations with being in business with Tory. You know, obviously, we've worked multiple times since then. OT Genesis. Yeah, I was interested in signing OT early on, and you know, we've again worked. You know, he tells the story about when we did our mixtape Rhythm and Bricks, and I told him, yo, it's a lot of rhythm but not enough bricks, and then he went and made Cut It, you know, because of that. And so yeah, there was a bunch of artists, you know. I was around for, you know, early on in Nicki's career, you know, when she was moving around with Gucci and she was in Atlanta. Like I literally saw her whole come up. Who else? Yeah, that's some.
Okay. So after 22 years of hundreds of mixtapes and compilations, you finally won your Grammy. So which was well deserved. So what was
Thank
that
you.
feeling like?
Surreal. To this day, it's still surreal that I won a Grammy for, a mixtape series that, like y'all asked, I just came up with the name, like sitting on my couch in the 4th Ward. When me and Tyler were working, I had various people that were in the studio, Lake being one of them, say yo, y'all gonna win a Grammy for this shit. And, me and Tyler have a long history together. I've been a fan since I first saw the, what's the video called? What's the first song called? When he ate the cockroach? You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember.
What's it called? Not Goblin.
No.
Yonkers.
Yes.
Yeah, since I was a fan since Yonkers. And, we connected very early on when he first came to Atlanta to do a show, and I had them on the radio, and obviously, he grew up on my shit. So, there was a period of time when it was like this new rising, these new rising artists that are now today GOATs that were like literally grew up on my shit. You know what I'm saying? Him being one of them. And then I had always been a fan. I just loved his work. And then, through the years, like we always just kind of like talked about or fooled around with the idea of me doing some shit on his shit. Or when I would run into him, one time I ran into him in the studio in LA. It was him and Rocky, and he was like, yo, come talk on my shit right now. And I was like, you want me to? Like, I'm down. And, and then during COVID, he called me, like, he had won the Grammy for Best Rap Album for the previous album. And then, he was like, yo, I got this idea, and I flew to LA, and he started playing me the music. And he had found a random Gangsta Grillz and just like took my vocals and like placed it over the music. So like when I heard the music, he already had my voice on there. And I was just like, yo, this nigga's a fucking mad scientist. Like he's one of a kind. And, he was really on a mission. He was like, I won the Grammy for Best Rap Album, and it wasn't even really a rap album. You know what I'm saying? So, he was like, I want to really show niggas out, like, like I want to spit. And he was just like, I think he literally made his album a Gangsta Grillz in a sense. Like, and I would go into the booth and I would say my shit, and then he would just tell me like, yo, say like, I'm on a boat. And I'd be like, I'm on a boat. And he'd be like, oh my God, it's fucking crazy. Like, oh my God. He'd just be in there losing it. And then, we literally did like 3 sessions. I can't, we spent hours in the studio just talking about music and life. And, and then I would work on the music, and then I would leave, and I got a call like a couple months later, like, yo, T wants you to come do another session. I come back, and, and then we sit in there and we would just chop it up and again, talk about everything under the sun and, bug out. He's the way his brain works, and like, he's literally like a music almanac. Like, he knows everything. And then, I would do another session, and then the third time I went in and I did my parts on it. And the way the album came out, I mean, it was like, I think he put out Lumberjack first, and people heard me on it, and it was like, oh shit, like, I got drama on there. And, like, I remember doing interviews around that time, and people were talking to me about Gangsta Grillz or mixtapes, and I was like, yo, I got some shit coming. And I didn't want to say, obviously, but I was like, yo, I got some shit coming. And then, we put it out 2021. I think it came out like June. If I'm not mistaken, it came out like June 25th, which is crazy because Trapper Died dropped on January 25th. But it came out like right around the time of the BET Awards. And then, it got nominated for a Grammy. And it was some tough competition. It was Call Me If You Get Lost. It was King's Disease 2. It was Certified Lover Boy. It was Cole, it's called The Off Season, and Donda. And, you know, like, I knew we had a shot. But, you know, you never know. And then instead of going to the Grammys, I had gotten offered to do J. Cole's Dreamville Festival and do a Gangsta Grillz set where I brought out Tip, Jeezy, and Wayne. So I'm in North Carolina the night of the Grammys, and I go sit down and do an interview with Wayno and Rob Markman, who are my guys, and they like just announced best rap album, Call Me If You Get Lost. And I'm like, yo, this is fucking crazy. Like, how full circle is this? Like,
No,
I'm about to
literally.
go do a Gangsta Grillz set with Tip, Jeezy, and Wayne, who I literally started my career with, and I win a Grammy for best rap album, you know, with Tyler, like, you know, while I'm about to perform in front of 75,000. And it's just like, you know, the way life works are like I said, like the things that I've seen or done or accomplished, like, you know, some DJs wish for one of the things that I've done, you know, and I've done a, you know, I'm really like that. Like, my new album is called, like, and, you know, I can say that with confidence, and because I've always wanted to show and always wanted to like give back, and like I am, like, when it comes to hip hop, like I am the culture, you know, and it's a lot of us that are that, but like I exude hip hop culture. Like, you can't, like what I've done with Gangsta Grillz, or, you know, what I've done with Generation Now, or like
Main Street, yeah.
Mean Street Studios. Like, it's just so many things that, you know, I've touched every aspect of it. And like, when it's really put in a perspective of the longevity of my career, and, you know, me still being here and still being relevant and still busting these niggas' ass, like, you know, like I'm one of the greats. Like, you know.
We need a new last question. The nigga really answered the last question.
Damn, because
The
that
last
really wasn't
question
my
was
last
what
question.
qualifies you as a legend. You
It
really
was-
just, I ain't gonna lie,
You
you
really
just
just answered
said this shit.
God
We need a
damn,
new
that's-
question, y'all. I don't know.
Because I asked Kenan that yesterday, so like that was supposed to be like, you know, the dramatic, and you just, damn.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I had to put some cinematic music, but
Right,
you don't
like,
need that shit.
goddamn, that was a
You know,
great
I've done
answer
a couple
too.
of these in my life. So yeah, I got, all right. So new last question.
What's a new last
Drum roll.
question?
What's
We need a new.
last question?
We need a
Let's
5
see,
question. Oh, how about this? How do you handle beef with other artists? I was watching the $1 Million Worth of Game shit. And, you know, what's Gilly? That's,
Yeah.
You talking about the shit with you and Wayne, bro.
Yeah.
So like, how do you handle that shit? Like, you work with 2 dope artists, and it's just like, I don't give a fuck with one of y'all right now. You know what I'm saying?
Man, it's hip hop, man. It's
Mhm.
comes with the territory. I mean, the gift and the curse of my name, boy, oh boy. I swear to God, when I picked that name, God looked down and was like, I got something for you, young
Yeah,
man.
nigga.
DJ Drama, you don't even know. So yeah, I've been in, you know, I've been in a pickle here or there in my career, but you know, it comes with it. Like, you know, I've been actually like directly, you know, in some shit with an artist, or I've been in the middle of some shit with artists, and you know, like I haven't always made the best decisions, you know, during those times, and like there are some incidents that, you know, I have to take accountability and responsibility for sure. But I think at the end of the day, like, you know, I think that I have a you know, my track record, like, you know, I'm a stand-up guy, and, you know, we all make mistakes. And, you know, we live and we learn and we grow, you know what I'm saying? And I think that when it's all said and done, like, people have respect for me, and people have, they can't necessarily say I've ever done any bad business, and, it's hip hop. So there's conflicts, and there's been times like I said, like I've been caught in the middle of some shit. And again, like I said, like I won't sit here and say that I've always made the best decisions. Like some of the things I've caused to stir at times. But when it's all said and done, like, I think that, I have a good heart, a good soul, good spirit. And as I've gotten older, I try to, steer clear of as much drama or beef as possible, But again, it's hip hop. Like, it's a competitive sport, you know what I mean? And, unfortunately, as we've seen more recently, and, in the last years or so, like, sadly, we see how easy it is that we can lose, people within the game, especially, artists and rappers that under the age of 30 or 35, like, it's really heartbreaking. So, when you really think about beef or, conflict, like I even seen Savage say the other day, like, shit it's just not worth it. Like it's like we only got one life here. You know what I mean? And like he was really dropping some jewels. He was just talking about, like you sleep 20 years, or like you're a kid for this long, or you don't get money till this time. And I was like, and if I'm not mistaken, Savage is what, late 20s, early 30s, like, for a artist of his age to really have that type of wisdom. And, like I'm blessed to have seen 44, and like, I've been in some situations where it could have went left, and thankfully it went right, and I'm happy to be able to sit here with y'all and tell my stories, and hopefully have another 50 years of legacy to accomplish, and, to be proud of, and, to be a part of. But yeah, hip hop is competitive, and, niggas not gonna always see eye to eye, but, at the end of the day, the most important thing is like, let's just always just keep that shit on wax, as we would say from the older generation. Keep that shit on wax. Like, it's not worth anyone's life or livelihood. Like, everybody has a mother and a father and a brother and a sister and, a son or a daughter. Like, life is too valuable, too precious. We only get one. Like, and I'm doing this interview a week, after we lost Takeoff. And it's like, if I can do anything, I'm gonna dedicate this to him. Like, I knew that kid when he was 17, 18, trying to make it, and them niggas made fucking history. They changed the rap game. Like, they will go down as one of the greatest groups ever in hip hop. And sadly, Takeoff wasn't even able to see 30 over nothing. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's like, at some point, as a culture, we gotta do better, man. We gotta value life more. Like, it's never that serious. Like, it's just not. And, it's my final words.
Wait, don't make that your final words, because I got one more question, because I don't want to end on that.
Okay.
I just want you to answer this last question.
Okay.
So, who is DJ Drama? If you had to write an autobiography right now, what is the first two sentences sounding like?
I guess it would be something like, if somebody would have told that 13-year-old kid that went to go see the movie Juice, that he will go down in history as one of the greatest hip hop DJs of all time, he wouldn't have believed them. Yeah.
Damn. That was
man. We had one of the
that was a great interview.
You feel me? That was 2 hours. Yeah, that was about 2 hours worth of gems. You feel me? So with that being said, like I said, I appreciate you again.
Absolutely. And salute to y'all for this platform. I know y'all been doing it for a minute, and incredible work. And you know what I mean? Like, as a young nigga and as a young woman, sky's the limit. Sky's not even the limit. Sky's just what we stand on to reach the beyond. So, I look forward to great things from y'all too.
Look forward to the great mixtapes. She finna bring the mixtapes back, Y'all stop dropping albums, them shits flopping, call them mixtapes, nigga. That's not a mixtape, nigga.
I got you.